This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
As the 50th anniversary of the coup and the invasion of Cyprus in 1974 approaches, we gauge the sentiment on both sides of the divide, and it isn't optimistic.
The efforts from Turkey to promote all these things and Dadam's claim for two states doesn't allow us to be optimistic on the Cyprus problem. I think it's the worst moment for the Cyprus problem, and the regional conditions, the international circumstances does not leave any room for optimism.
We want leadership, not at the political level, but at the social level as well. We want the party leaders, civil society leaders, we want the opinion makers to understand, appreciate, and then start showing the way forward. And I think this is what we are lacking.
We're coming up, believe it or not, to 50 years since the coup and the Turkish invasion of Cyprus. It's an anniversary that will be marked with a great deal of gloom, I think, here on the island. And to discuss where we are 50 years on when it comes to the Cyprus issue, we're joined on this week's programme by Professor of International Politics, Nick Panayotidis. Nick, 50 years, and I've been here for almost all of those 50 years. And I don't see this going away anytime soon. Please tell me that I'm wrong.
Dear Rosie, in advance I would like to thank you for having me. I would like to say that things couldn't be worse according to my humble opinion. The claim of the Turkish Cypriot leadership for a separate sovereignty, the efforts from Turkey to promote all these things, and Dadam's claim for two states doesn't allow us to be optimistic on the Cyprus problem. I think it's the worst moment for the Cyprus problem. And the conditions, the regional conditions, the international circumstances does not leave any room for optimism.
It doesn't, does it? Let's start with the fact that the leadership of the breakaway state in the north is in Azerbaijan for that meeting of the Turkic states, and they're pressing, as indeed are many of those states, for them to recognise the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus.
Yes, it's let's say, an element, a feature of Turkish foreign policy to, let's say, to instrumentalize its power in order to promote other targets or goals. What I mean, we must not forget that Turkey helped Azerbaijan in its war with Armenia. So now it takes back what it did, and it presses all these Turkish states in order to accept the Turkish UDI.
Well, they've already declared UDI, but at the moment, nobody except Turkey recognises them. And I don't think any EU member states are likely to recognise them. But at the same time, if they start managing to get, if you like, a foot in the door with the recognition of some other states, then it's the thin end of the wedge, isn't it?
Yes, because, Rosie, tie in international problems like Cyprus is something relevant. The time passes. We have the so-called geopolitical conflict on the ground. The many shelters are coming. There is no solution. UNFICYP came in 1964, I remind, for 3 months, and now it's been 60 years that UNFICYP is here. There is no solution. All the circumstances are not in our favor. On the contrary, run at our expense, despite the efforts of our leadership to do something on the problem.
Well, let's talk about those efforts because, again, as I said, I've been here since pretty well the start of this problem, and those efforts don't seem to be very proactive. We are still talking about invasion and occupation, and it's very clear that having talked about it for 50 years, it's got us absolutely nowhere. And we don't seem to see any move by our leadership, and this goes for the last many leaders here in Cyprus, we don't seem to see any of them trying to take a new look, a new approach to how they could solve the problem. And I get the feeling they're actually not interested in solving the problem, because at the moment it's a frozen conflict. We have fortunately not in recent years had any deaths as a result of the division of the island. That, of course, could change, particularly if the UN leave, and one wonders how long they might think of hanging around when there doesn't seem to be any desire on either side to come to an agreement.
Rosie, unfortunately, the leadership of the occupied North and the claim for separate sovereignty, that it's a solution outside of the agreed framework. This is a very difficult, it's like, let's say, a political suicide for a leader to accept something like that. On the other hand, Mrs. Olkin, the special representative of Mr. Guterres, said you have to think it differently. I think this is a vague statement. Nevertheless, we have to see what does she mean, because does she mean an evolutionary approach? Because she said for something else. Because as she has underlined, all the efforts have failed, and we have to, I don't remember exactly what she said, but she said something like that. We have to act differently in this situation. What does she mean? An evolutionary approach that would be different from the comprehensive total solution. Steps by steps, we have to make some confidence building measures in order to approach the Turkish Cypriots, and are they? Our politicians are ready to follow this approach. Are there any dangers in consolidating, in perpetuating the status quo we have? It's not, there are no easy answers, I think, in this situation.
No, there certainly aren't. There certainly aren't, Nick. But let me come back to the fact that I think a few days ago, Andreas Mavroyiannis, who was in Crans-Montana when the talks crashed, came out and admitted that Anastasiades had put forward the idea of a two-state solution. He's denied it all these years, and yet it does seem that that might be the preferred solution of Greek Cypriot leaders than sharing power with Turkish Cypriots.
I don't know. There are many statements that say that Mr. Anastasiades has done this. If he has acted in this way, it's a grave mistake in strategic terms. If our leadership proposed, in fact, the two-state solutions that we are trying so many years in order to avoid it, so it's a grave strategic mistake that it's a problem. So we are shooting on our feet, because, Rosie, our effort, according to the high-level agreements of, I'm referring to the high-level summits in 1977 and 1979, provide for a federation with a strong federal government that Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots can coexist in peace. Now we are out of this framework because of Qatar's insistence on two states. If our leadership propose something like that, it's strategically, at least I can say, wrong and self-defeating.
All right, but you keep saying that it's the fault of Tatar for mentioning two states. And as far as I can see, we don't seem to be willing to compromise. All the hardline parties talk about going back to pre-1974, and I think you just summed it up in your first statements a few minutes ago, that time passes and things change. There's no way to go back to the status quo ante now, is there?
If we resort, let's say, back to the Crans-Montana and Montpellier discussion and Geneva discussions, maybe there was an opportunity there to see if Turkey could go a little bit further. However, I'm not quite sure if Turkey was ready to abstain from her role as a guarantor power. And even Mavroyiannis has admitted this. We had statements from former Foreign Minister Çavuşoğlu that we have to wake up because we are sleeping. They will never go to abstain from the security role of Cyprus, and the Greek Cypriots are feared that if we accept guaranteed rights on a guarantee role, let's say, on Turkish, we will be in insecurity. We have to find, Rosie, a way that neither the Turkish Cypriots nor neither the Greek Cypriots will be threatened one from the other. The Turkish Cypriots, maybe they fear of the majority. The Greek Cypriots, they fear of the hegemonic ambitions of Turkey. We saw Turkey intervening whenever it's when there is a lack of trust, and we have to find a way to overcome this gap. But it's very difficult. I don't know what will happen. I'm not optimistic, as I have mentioned at the beginning.
No, but that lack of trust runs through everything. And there was, in the Annan plan, a proposal for the armies of Greece and Turkey that are on the island to be reduced right back to the very basic numbers before leaving altogether. And it was the Greek Cypriots who said no thank you.
Okay, it's again the same issue, because again at this time, we go back to a very sensitive moment, but I will comment like this. According to the provisions of the Annan plan, Turkey could be a guarantor, could secure a guarantor role not only for the Turkish constituent polity or state, but also for the Greek constituent states. I think my humble opinion is that there cannot be a solution that it will not solve this problem. I think only the United Nations or the European Union can serve this, but Turkey does not accept it. But why do we go to the past? I think we have this has finished. There are some convergence from the period of Christofias Talat. There are also some, let's say, I don't know if Turkey accepts or the Turkish Cypriot leadership what has been agreed during the Geneva talks and the Montpellier talks. We have to go on. Maybe some mistakes have been made by both, but we have to see the realities now. And the realities are not okay. I don't know. I cannot see anything else happening on this issue.
But you're going back, you say, to the Geneva talks, to the Montpellier talks. Much later than both of those, we had Crans-Montana. You can't suddenly, after 50 years, say, listen, guys, okay, we've made a few mistakes. Let's go back to the plan that we had in 1990, whatever. We don't mind that so much now. You can't pick and choose like this. The situation is as it is now, and nobody seems to be thinking, how can we come to some agreement which I think everybody understands would be of benefit to all Cypriots, regardless of their ethnicity or their religion.
So, Rosie, you would agree with me that our leadership, because the decisions are not made by me and you, but from our leadership, has to find something, and I agree with you that the efforts are unsuccessful, to think out of the box in order for the negotiations, the stalled negotiations, to resume again. But since I am not taking decisions, I cannot think anything, because if you are going to take decisions, Henry Kissinger told that he was also an academic and a politician. He had both roles. Henry Kissinger, a person that we don't like here in Cyprus, but he very well said that it's different, the role of a politician from an academic. If you are a politician, you need a grand strategy. You have to cooperate with all the pressure groups, with the Turkish Cypriots, with the Greek Cypriots. You have to have a common strategy. And we don't have, Rosie, a common grand strategy in Cyprus. And because you told me about the polls, I will tell you something sad. According to a recent poll by CYBC, the Greek Cypriots want a unitary state. The majority, if you see this particular poll, the majority of the Turkish Cypriots now embrace a unitary state, but a unitary state cannot be done. Even a federal state, as we say, cannot be agreed. So how are you going to agree on a united state. Turkey will not agree on anything like that. It doesn't agree on a federation. It will agree on a unitary state. So I'm not quite sure if the Greek Cypriots as well are ready for a solution.
Well, it does seem to me that there is not the will here in certainly the Republic of Cyprus to come to any sort of compromise that might mean giving up anything. And as you know, I'm sure you're a professor of international politics, when you say the word negotiation, it means give and take. And it seems to me that the harder we try to take and not give, the harder becomes the stance of the Turkish Cypriots as well, and that leads us down a road to nowhere.
Yes, Rosie, and what someone with a common logic can say about this and can propose is that we have the Guterres package. We have 6 elements that comprise this package. We have to compromise, we have to talk on these elements in order to uproot the status quo. If the two leaderships and the people who want a new status quo that it will favor the interest of them and their children in all terms, they have to make a compromise. And the compromise can be made on these 6 elements. But if there is not a genuine ambition to change the status quo, and if some parties or common interests, let's say, believe that the status quo furthers their interests, whatever it may be, economic, political, or whatever, no solution can be seen at the horizon, at the tunnel. I hope that this is not the case regarding the majority of the political spectrum and the people of Cyprus, because some people and some politicians do not want a solution. They do not admit it, but I think they understand that what they propose cannot be the solution, because the solution has to see some practical issues to be solved 60 years after. And you know, the time passes. In 30 years, nobody from my generation will be alive. My son will not know anything about the Cyprus problem. He will not care because he doesn't know anything.
No, what he will know is that the Green Line has become a border with a Turkish state.
Yeah. Unfortunately, and hopefully this will not happen, but I don't know, I'm not optimistic. We wait, we will see. I think that Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots can live together as for centuries, live peacefully and in stability in the past.
Yeah, they do have a good history when it was happening, to living together, and I wonder whether or not we will ever see that again. It's a bit depressing, really, but I share your hope that something will come of some form of negotiation sooner rather than later. Nick Panayotidis, Professor of International Politics, many thanks for the discussion.
Thank you for having me. It was a very nice discussion with you. Thank you very much.
You can subscribe to the Cyprus News Digest on iTunes for free and get the program downloaded to your phone or tablet so you can listen anytime, anywhere.
This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
The biggest achievement of Crime Stoppers has been the ability of the public to be able to give information about crime anonymously.
There's no way I could have kept prostituting without the drugs. There's no way I could have had my body used like a public toilet, because that's actually what prostitution is.
And then the 4th series I started 3 days after I'd won the Oscar, so the whole of the Monarch of the Glen experience was all interplatted with the Gosford Park Oscar experience.
I was working with Ronnie James Dio, and David was going to reform Whitesnake in 2003.
Cyprus was chosen because Cyprus is a stable, peaceful and secure place.
We have to really look closely. What are we doing with children? What are we doing with adolescents? And what are we doing with adults that can help them move into a more literate situation?
The ones that I'm proudest of are the ones that were true discoveries, where we found something we didn't know existed.
And we're going to stay on this week's programme with that topic of the 50th anniversary of the Turkish invasion of Cyprus. We're going to talk now to somebody who's been working over the years from the north of Cyprus for reconciliation. Turkish Cypriot Kemal Baykali joins us now. Kemal, can you tell me whether or not there is the same sense of perhaps frustration, but also, I would suggest, resignation in the northern part of the island as we come up to the 50th anniversary of the event that changed the island forever?
Hi, thanks, Rosie. I think it will be fair to say that everybody is going through mixed feelings. I think nobody had expected this problem to last for half a century after 1974. And I think those who appreciate that they want to have a normal life and a settlement, a solution, a future for their children, it's clearly a sign of unhappiness, uneasiness, and a sense of losing direction, especially those Turkish Cypriots who feel that they are not being integrated to the rest of the world, and that their demographic and their sociological, their cultural well-being is being threatened. On the other hand, of course, it's not always easy to judge historical events, because what happened in those Cold War years and then, the feeling of desperation were different. We would never understand those people who really felt threatened. But after all those years, I think people really wanted to have an exit. Turkish Cypriots have shown a clear dedication and demonstration that they wanted an end game. I mean, whether it was a good plan or a bad plan, it can be discussed on other platforms. But in 2004, they voted for unification and EU membership. And in 2015, they have elected a pro-solution Turkish Cypriot leader, maybe one of the most pro-solution ones, Mr. Mustafa Akıncı. And, they were on the streets many times to show that they really wanted a solution. And after 50 years, without pointing fingers, I think the fact that we failed to come to this unification is creating a bitter taste in everyone's mouth.
Have things changed since 2004 and 2015? Is the feeling in the north now that the boat has sailed, we better just get on with this idea being put forward by Tatar now, and seemingly with the support of Turkey, for partition, a two-state solution? How does that go down in the north?
According to the surveys, I think people prefer some sort of settlement, and they would see it better than a continuation of the status quo. But I think everybody understands that there is no way for a two-state solution, and there is no way that people in the international community, people in the Greek Cypriot community, that they will not accept a so-called two-state solution. And I don't think that they are hopeful about this prospect, about this policy of Mr. Tatar. And everybody thinks that this is a new policy, but it's not. I mean, this was voiced by Mr. late Denktash at the time, that we are going to go our own way, that we are going to have our own independence and our own sovereignty, which is not going to be the case. And more we delay this more we extend the status quo, everybody is being damaged. Many people think that it's the Turkish Cypriots who will be damaged first. But in the long run, think of an island that 1/3 of it will finally be absorbed by Turkey, and then there will be a land border with Turkey in the middle of the island. And I don't think that it will be good for Cyprus as a whole. So I think one way or another, after 50 years of division, and even more when it comes to the intercommunal fightings, I think we need to be reasonable enough to think what kind of a future do we want for this small island. And I think this is where we should start from. I mean, without starting judging the historical events into bits, into details.
Well, the UN Secretary-General's special envoy sent a letter to all the press just before she wrapped up her contacts on the island, and I think she made it very clear that we must stop living in the past and start looking with fresh eyes at the future. How did that go down in the north?
This is what all the reasonable people of Cyprus have been saying for many, many years, and this is, of course, music to our ears. The problem is that we want a leadership not at the political level, but at the social level as well. We want the party leaders, civil society leaders, we want the opinion makers to understand, appreciate, and then start showing the way forward. And I think this is what we are lacking. On one hand, we insist that it should be a Cypriot-led solution. On the other hand, every time there is a possibility, we see in the media, we see in the civil society, we see in the political parties a sense of negativity, a sense of desperation. Whatever comes out, leaks from the talks are always negative, and then people start thinking that maybe whatever solution will be, it's going to be worse than what the situation is now. So I think it's very important for all the opinion makers, all the reasonable thinking of Cyprus, to start thinking what kind of a future are they envisaging for this country. But also, we like them or not, but there are also some realities on the island. We cannot go from 0 to 100 in a single day. Maybe we need to start thinking in stages. What are the things that we should be fixing to actually go for the next step? And then just because we've been thinking about the so-called Big Bang comprehensive solution, we have been delaying the things that we could do by ourselves. In that sense, what Madame Holguin's statements are, this is the reason why her statements are making a lot of sense to me, because we don't have to wait for a Big Bang solution. There are things we can do on the ground. Can we think of opening more crossing points? Can we think of maybe having more technical committees being more efficient? Can we try to bring the youngsters together? Can we organize some? There are so many things that can be done without compromising your official position. If this is the concern that you have.
The other problem, Kemal, is that all of those things you've just suggested require a certain amount of pragmatism, which seems to me to be lacking, particularly in the leadership in both sides. Very quickly, your comment on that.
Well, at the times when everything looks grey and grim, like the case in France, we see that people actually organize themselves and overcome the things that they will never be able to do so. So if there's a will, there's a way, and I think it's up to the people to actually deliver this message.
That is Kemal Baykali, who is a Turkish Cypriot, sharing his thoughts with us on this very special, unfortunately, 50th anniversary of the invasion of Cyprus in 1974. Kemal, many thanks for your time.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
And in other news also related to the ongoing Cyprus problem, the President came out earlier this week blaming Turkish Cypriot leader Tatar for the failure to open more checkpoints. President Christodoulidis said that the Turkish Cypriot side had rejected a proposal to open further checkpoints that he put forward. He said that he had proposed that along with the Miamilia checkpoint, which the Turkish Cypriots had suggested be opened, he also thought that we should open one in either Pyrgos or Piri. He said that his counter-proposal had been turned down, but nobody seemed to be able to explain why the opening of one checkpoint would have been better than the opening of no checkpoints at all. Or was it perhaps because it was the checkpoint that had been suggested by the Turkish Cypriots? One couldn't help thinking about spoilt children in a kindergarten playground. And the DC leader took issue as well with what's been going on in the Cyprus issue, saying that the international community was inching closer towards giving up on hopes of solving the Cyprus problem on the basis of a bizonal, bicommunal federation. She urged the president to look very carefully at how things were progressing and cautioned that clashes with UN officials and casting doubts over the objectivity of the UN Secretary-General's reports serve no purpose and undermine the Greek Cypriot side. So it looks like another year will pass and we still don't know where the Cyprus problem is headed, if anywhere. Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.